Welcome to Touchline. I'm your host, Anthony Totera, coming to you from the Soccer Hall of Fame at the OSA Center with who other than Jason de Vos. I call him Team Canada for many years. And Mr. Team Captain Canada, how are you? And thanks for joining us here.
I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's always nice to chat and get a chance to talk to friends about the game of soccer.
Absolutely. My pleasure having you here. Jason, let's talk a little bit about your memories of playing in Europe. Go way back and tell...
It's a long way back.
Yeah, tell the viewers who you played for and when did you get to Europe to start honing your skill?
I went over to Europe at the age of 22. I was very fortunate as well. Nick Dasovich had made a recommendation to an agent who brought me over. Long story short, I ended up at 3rd Division Darlington. Played there for 18 months, and I was sold to Dundee United in the Scottish Premier League. Played there for 3 years. Was fortunate enough to captain the side, and then I was sold to Wigan Athletic. Played there for 3 years, and again, fortunate enough to captain the team. Won promotion from the 2nd Division to the Championship. Missed out in the playoffs by a point in my last season there. And then I was a free transfer, and I decided to join Ipswich Town. And that was you know, from a professional standpoint, the highlight of my career was playing for Ipswich. They were a phenomenal club. You know, very much a family club. You know, everyone from the chairman down to the tea lady would treat you like a son, part of the family. And I really enjoyed my football there, and played the last 4 years of my career at Ipswich, and retired there in 2008.
Now, Jason, let's be honest to the viewers out there. You're Canadian, and a lot of Canadian kids that went back, especially when you did to Europe to try and hone your skills, they must have been taking some extra shots at you at practice, and they must have been going at you because they're saying, what's this kid from that cold country coming here to take a job away from one of our youngsters? Mentally, you had to be really prepared, Jason.
Yeah, you know, I think that's the one characteristic that most of the players that are Canadian that go over there and manage to stay over there, that they all have in common, is that resilience, the mental strength to be able to handle that. Because when you show up and you're a foreigner, you do get treated a little bit differently as an outsider, and you really do have to sort of prove to everyone that you belong to be there. But you know, once you've done that and you've managed to become one of the guys, so to speak, and proved your worth, you know, I think, you know, you're very much accepted as one of their own. And I was fortunate as well because I had some great Canadians that went before me, guys like Craig Forrest, Frank Yallop at Ipswich, Bruce Twomley at Ipswich as well, Paul Pesky-Solidal went over there and did quite well. Mark Watson was there for a period of time. Alex Bunbury played in Portugal and did very well. So, you know, a number of Canadians prior to me had kind of paved the road. You know, Nick Dasovich had a good career as well in Scotland. So, you know, it's getting easier and easier now, I think, to go overseas as a Canadian and be accepted.
And that's great to hear. Tell the viewers out there, personal highlight that you had playing in Europe. Was it maybe scoring a big-time goal, a championship? Tell the viewers out there.
I mean, there's so many, to be honest with you. Just the everyday excitement around the game in Europe is phenomenal. It's very difficult to explain. But having said that, I think we're starting to see more and more of that now with Toronto, Vancouver, and hopefully in Montreal this year in Major League Soccer. That atmosphere around the game as a very, very professional, big-time sport. People live and breathe it in England and Scotland and Europe. It's definitely the main sport around the world. So, you know, just being immersed in that culture, you can't help but soak up the knowledge and learn and become better. And hopefully that's, you know, what we're going to have here in Canada as well one day, that, you know, all of our kids that play the game, they watch the game on television, they read about it on the internet, they follow the game, they follow the stars, you know, the players from the national team and in MLS that they really enjoy watching, and we start really, you know, driving that culture of excellence to become better as a country.
You and I both know that it's going to be really hard to get to 2014 in Brazil, but Jason, you and I are true blue or true red Canadian fans, and in my house I've always said it, two boys, they will wear the Canadian jersey before any Italian jersey when Team Canada plays. This mentality in our country, I've spoken to Stephen Hart a couple of weeks ago, really has to change when we're playing other countries from Central America, from the CONCACAF region. Team Canada supporters have to come out in droves. What is it going to take this time around, because this next round is going to be huge?
Well, I think it's important that we create, you know, a real home field advantage. When we're playing our home games, you almost have to win those games to get through to the next round. So it's going to be very important, the games that are being played in Toronto, that the fans come out in numbers. And you know, I'll be honest with you, I think that the clubs, the youth clubs, have a big role to play in that, clubs and academies alike, by getting their players out there in numbers and really supporting. And in fairness to the Canadian Soccer Association, I think they've done an excellent job of reaching out. Certainly in the last round of qualifying, they did a number of different initiatives to really try and drive that support. We brought 500 players from Oakville for all 3 of the World Cup qualifiers, which was fantastic, and a great experience as well. The kids come out, they get a chance to see top-level international football, and it really sort of piques their interest, and it gives them that incentive to maybe want to go on and reach that level themselves. So we need to make BMO Field a sea of red, and really support the players and give them that extra incentive, I suppose, to go out there on the field and get a result.
I agree 100% with you, Jason. The CSA and the OSA, I think the last round did a fantastic job because they went to the youth clubs, like you said, and they made them feel important. They made them feel like they're part of this new culture that is taking place. And this is great. The old culture still bothers me in a bit, Jason, and we need to talk about it. When players turn their back on Team Canada, that really bothers me, Jason. I know it bothers you and a lot of ex-guys like that I could name on and on. Why? Why do we have to practically beg Canadian kids now that have gone overseas to play for Team Canada? Why is that?
I think it's a cultural thing as well. I mean, I can only speak about my own experience as a youngster, and I was 12 years old in '86 when we made our one and only appearance in the World Cup, and that experience of watching Canada play against the world's best on that stage was enough to motivate me to want to try and do the same myself. So as a kid growing up, it wasn't about becoming a professional soccer player and earning a living out of the game. It was more for me about wearing that jersey and being a Canadian and being proud of that. The byproduct of all the work I put in to become an international was I had a professional career out of the game, which was quite nice, but that was never the motivating factor for me. Now I think that role has almost reversed in a lot of ways, that kids perhaps dream of making money out of the game and being a professional first as opposed to playing for their country first. And I'll be honest with you, anyone who tells you differently hasn't been through this. Playing for Canada and being an international and then going to play in Europe is not easy to do. I wouldn't say it's held against you, but I would say that it's definitely much more difficult for you from a club perspective, because the clubs don't want to be losing their players to overseas travel during World Cup qualifying years. I mean, there were some years where I was playing upwards of 60 games, 5 or 6 international flights, and it wears you down.
Right, but sorry to interrupt, Jason, but if it was Italy, Spain, Portugal, England, they wouldn't say that. But because it's Canada,
they wouldn't. But then those players wouldn't be playing professionally in North America either.
True.
So there's that consideration as well. I would like to think that the allure and the desire to play for your country would be strong in every player.
Right.
And I think experiences like our kids in Oakville had, going out to watch the national team play at BMO Field at a young age, can stimulate that desire in them to go on and want to play at that level. It's what happened for me. It's how I managed to make it to that level myself, and I'd like to think that same experience can happen for kids in Canada too.
Well said, Jason, but obviously the buck stops with the players. They're the ones that are putting on the cleats. They're the ones that are passing the ball and shooting and what have you. So the buck stops with them. We can complain about the CSA, we can complain about the OSA, Stephen Hart, but the guys that are on the field, if they truly want to make a difference, they have to show up and give 110%. You and I know in the last round, we played the minnows. Coming up, it's going to be a lot harder.
No, it's going to be very difficult. I mean, there's no question that Stephen has a very difficult job ahead of him, because we don't have the depth of talent that other countries in CONCACAF have. Mexico, United States, I think, are light years ahead of everyone else, and it's going to be very, very difficult for us. But having said that, and knowing many of the players on the men's and women's national team, when you pull on that jersey, it makes a difference. It really does. I think we saw that certainly in the women's qualifying for the Olympics. That team bond, that team chemistry that's there, that desire to play for each other and play for that jersey is a very strong one. So I believe that our team will have that same characteristic on the men's side, that they will work hard for each other, but ultimately it's about the talent of the players, and it's up to them to get the job done on the field.
And let's hope they get to 2014 in Brazil. Before we close out this section on Team Canada and yourself, give us a highlight playing for Team Canada, and give us a coach that meant a lot to you growing up in this country and then going overseas.
Yeah, I mean, the highlight is a pretty obvious one. I think the Gold Cup in 2000 was just a tremendous experience, just a roller coaster of emotions from start to finish. Almost not getting out of the group stage, winning a coin toss, playing against Mexico, going down a goal, tying it up, Richard Hastings, goal in extra time, golden goal was just a tremendous feeling. And I remember sitting on the back of the bus after that game with with some of the other players, and we were all looking at each other thinking, you know what, we could actually win this thing. It was just a remarkable experience. And then we played Trinidad in the semifinals, and to be honest, we probably should have lost because we didn't play very well.
I remember that.
But we had a certain Craig Forrest in goal who was just unbelievable on the day for us, just phenomenal. And we got through to the final against Colombia, and I still think that's the best we've ever played as a country,
Absolutely.
as a national team.
Yep.
That game against Colombia was just a complete performance from everyone, and it was almost a case of we were destined to win the game as opposed to anything else. So from a national team perspective, that's obviously the highlight. Growing up in Canada, I was very fortunate. I had a number of very good coaches. My father being the first and foremost, and it has to be said, I would never have reached any level of the game without the support of my parents.
Their names, please.
Jack and Rhea, they supported me right through from the day I started kicking a ball to the last day that I finished. So if I didn't have that support network, I never would have made it. And I think one of the reasons that I'm so keen on working at the grassroots level now and want to try and change the system so much is so that kids who maybe don't have the same support network that I have will still have an opportunity to fulfill their dreams. Because the system's broken and we've got to fix it. So
well said.
That's definitely where we're at right now.
And in our second part, we're going to talk about what Jason just talked about, grassroots at the Oakville level and all across this province and in this country. Come back for part 2 on Touchline.